What's going on, guys? So, something kind of crossed my mind as a what if situation. I don't think it's the most realistic thing that can happen, but I think there's still, let's say, 20% of a chance, right? And we know how much Robert Saleh loves his defensive line. It's feasible enough. It's feasible enough for me. So, here's the thing. When I did my mock draft previously, for the most recent one, it got me thinking there's an interesting situation that we could have been faced with. Now, obviously, the trade was not the greatest thing by any means. I probably could have, JD would have got much more. We'll just keep it capped at that. But we moved from 4 to 18 with the Saints. And at number 10, we ended up drafting George Karlaftis. Now, that's my guy. I'll probably pick him 9 out of 10 times. There's still a couple more breakdowns that I've been taking a look at for that top 10 cluster of players, top 15, just depending on who shifts around. But at number 4, we had Aiden Hutchinson that was on the board when I traded out. He ended up landing all the way to the Atlanta Falcons at number 8, which was crazy. So it got me thinking. A lot of the feedback from you guys was that if Hutchinson was there, there's no way we should have pulled back, unless and then insert crazy amount of draft capital that we would have got back. What if there was a situation that actually presents itself the same way, where we see Aiden Hutchinson on the board, we pick him at at 4. Keep in mind, Aiden Hutchinson, he's the prospect on the defensive line that essentially has the highest floor, meaning he's one of the safer prospects in terms of exactly what that on-field product should look like right away. Not the most bendiest player, as you'll hear people say, for being able to get around the edge. He's not going to be the strongest. He's not going to be the fastest. Not the most agile, etc., etc. But the man knows how to get after a quarterback. And I did see a stat that said he had like a 19.2% pass rush or pressure rate. One of the two, either way, it ranked second in all of college football in terms of that particular metric, which is something that stands out because you always want to be able to add context to it. But I believe he was also top 3 in pass rush sets, so it's not like it's a small sample size. In addition to that, I believe it was true pass rush win sets. Either way, it was strictly situations where we know it was going to be like a passing down, something to that effect. He was able to cause a pressure, do what he needed to do for those plays. Second highest in college football. So that already stands out as a sign. And we've seen it happen when we actually targeted Carl Lawson. If you guys remember, the big indicator that he pointed out quite a bit during like that introduction conference to him was that even though the sack numbers might not have been there, the pressure rate was so excellent that he felt like with some tweaks, some more coaching, just the scheme that we would put him in compared to what he was doing in Cincinnati, he should be able to see an increase in production right away. You have to imagine it's a numbers game at the end of the day, so the more pressures you can get, realistically, the more sacks you should be able to provide yourself. So it's a little bit of the same situation here when I'll take a look at it. And to be honest, I mean, let's say his floor is he gives you 8 sacks every season. There's 32 teams in the league that's going to sign up for that every day. Now, do you want somebody like a TJ Watt that can blow the doors off of the NFL and, challenge the sack record? Of course. But if you got 3-4 players on the line that can all get 8 sacks, let alone from your, outside linebackers, or your middle linebackers, or if you're doing, creative blitz schemes with the safeties and corners, you got something you can definitely work around there. So we can pick Hutchinson at 4. Everybody would be extremely comfortable with that player. Let's say we also don't move out of 10 and George Karlaftis is still on the board. What if we double down and we end up getting 2 defensive linemen? Now, I did see a previous mock draft, and it was from some analyst. I can't even tell you. I do know it was a Bleacher Report article for sure. But they had us doing something crazy. We picked up, like Trayvon Walker and I think Jordan Davis, which is crazy to me, especially considering you see us picking up Devontae Wyatt in the second on a lot of mock drafts as well. But needless to say, same situation, different scenario. We would still get 2 defensive linemen, but we are getting arguably 2 of the best rushers in the draft class. Now, where Aiden Hutchinson has the high floor and maybe not necessarily, an extremely high ceiling, George Karlaftis doesn't have as high as a floor, but his ceiling's through the roof. His bend around the edge is underrated for sure. His power, I would say, it's highlighted in a lot of his scouting reports, but it's also still very underrated. You see him bullying and manhandling quite a lot of people. He's young. Excuse me. He also has very deceptive speed and burst and able to get into the backfield right away. So he has a combination of traits that Hutchinson, at least on film, at least what we've seen at the combine and things like that, doesn't present. And it gives the way I look at it is, at least from a player-to-player standpoint, we're getting, arguably somewhere between 2 of the top 3 edge rushers in the class. The second point would be George Karlaftis kind of gives us that additional, Hall of Fame level development potentially there. Who knows if Aiden Hutchinson has more that he can produce, but at least from what we've seen, the measurements, the physical traits and everything, George Karlaftis has what it takes to be able to be in the upper echelon. Now, doubling down on the line, obviously that provides us an immediate edge starter because that's exactly what we need. And then the idea in mind behind drafting the second defensive lineman, which I won't say any order because if we do Karlaftis first, I highly doubt we see Hutchinson at 10. But let's say we do get both of the defensive linemen. We have a starter. We also have Carl Lawson insurance. And this works out for us in a couple of different ways because let's say Carl Lawson's injury lingers. Or let's say it occurs again. Anything that impacts his availability. We immediately have our other starter already penciled in. If he sustains an injury, or let's avoid the injury. If he's injured, we have a starter. If he doesn't get injured, but he's not producing the way we would have expected originally, then we also have that insurance of having a rookie that doesn't have to play 90% of the snaps, but they can go half and half. He'll get the development. Carl Lawson's a team guy, so he's going to get the expertise and the assistance from him as well, the coaching staff, all that good stuff. And then that's 2 of Carl Lawson's 3-year contract. I want to say it was a 3-year contract. That's 2 of his 3 years right there. Ultimately, we should be able to cut bait with him after that because that's the way Joe Douglas has structured a lot of these contracts. We get an easy get out after 2 years. And we already have our defensive line solidified, so we're rolling with a starting unit and backups of Aiden Hutchinson, Quinnen Williams. I'm pretty sure we'll see John Franklin Myers inside a lot more this season. So John Franklin Myers, Carl Lawson, we have George Karlaftis in the wing, Jonathan Marshall, Sheldon Rankins. We still have Bryce Huff. And then I know we have like Jabari Zuniga still signed. And I want to say the other guy's name was Tanzel Smart. But either way, immediately not only improves the starting group, it improves the depth that we have on the team. You no longer have to worry about, and speaking of which, don't forget we just brought in Jacob Martin. So we have a lot of solidified roles in terms of who we can make situational pass rushers, who, if we need a little bit more, run stopping ability that we're going to bring in. Either way, everything around our defensive line is predicated on attack. They've even said as much in an interview recently where the theory behind how the attacking front we have is that we're always looking to rush the passer. We'll play the run on the way. Either way, though, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. I'm just super curious. I know there's a lot of negativity for the mock draft I talked about. I've seen with, I'm pretty sure it was Walker. I know for sure it was Jordan Davis. But I think it actually has the makings to be a pretty reasonable outcome for what we could expect if it played out that way in theory. There's also the things you guys have to keep in mind, like what does that mean for our cap? We're investing 2 high picks in there. We already paid Carl Lawson. We have Quentin Williams getting paid. We just extended JFM in the season. There's still debt pieces that we might need to take care of and things like that. So there's a lot more of those conversations that will come into play. And Joe Douglas has done a pretty good job at making his cap work the way somebody's stock portfolio would. In that he's not putting all his eggs in one basket. He's spreading that wealth around so he can properly try to develop all aspects of the team. But again, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Would you love to see the scenario? Would you hate it? Obviously, I know we still need it'd be great to probably add a Gardner at like number 10 if he was there. Kyle Hamilton would definitely come into play if he's there. We can still go the tackle route for those that don't believe in Becton. And then, number 1 wide receiver is still like the huge thing a lot of us are expecting. But let me know your thoughts. I'll catch up with you guys again.